So when Red Dragon told me that they made a variation of their famous K617 Fizz keyboard, I wasn't sure what to expect. Now I have reviewed this keyboard before and I gave it praise, as it is a pretty good keyboard for the price. And now they decided to take the same keyboard and change one big thing, and that's the switches. The K617 is now offered with magnetic switches, which is Red Dragon's first magnetic switch keyboard. But what is a magnetic switch? Does it change your gaming experience? And is it worth the jump in price? I'm going to answer these questions shortly, but in a simple answer, this is a whole different keyboard now, and it might not be for you. This is the Red Dragon K617 Fizz Rapid Trigger Magnetic Switch Keyboard. A very long name, yes, I know, but what you need to know about it is right in the name. But let's get into the specs. This is a 60% keyboard that is wired only. It has a basic profile for being 60%, so this is a no frills kind of product. It's very lightweight, and because it has an all plastic body, there are some flex on the board, but not too much. But let's get into the main feature, and that's these switches. These are magnetic switches, but what exactly are they? So magnetic switches function similarly to a regular switch, but instead of having those contact pins at the end of the switches, they are magnets. Because of this, the keyboard can detect the distance when you press on the switch, and now you can customize how sensitive you want your keystrokes to be. You can essentially make the keyboard as sensitive as possible, allowing just a slight tap of the key to register. Or you can actually make it so you can have to bottom out the key press for it to actually register it. But why should we care about this? This feature of changing the register point of a press can change your whole gaming experience, especially for FPS gamers. If you're playing a game like Overwatch, CSGO, Valorant, Apex, and others, you can essentially press the keys much faster, allowing great movement in the game. What's even crazier is that you can change each key to a certain distance to register. Now, I am not the most competitive gamer, but I know that this can give users a huge competitive edge in a lot of games. Now, combine this with what Red Dragon claims to be an 8 kHz polling rate. This is a very quick and rapid responding keyboard. Now, I can't test the 8K polling rate myself, but in use, they do feel fast, especially if you adjust the actuation point in the software, which I will get to in a moment. The switches feel linear, but they are kind of loud for what they are. They are very clacky, and outside of some mushy stabilizers, they are pretty loud. Let's talk about the software real quick, because I feel like personally it's a mixed bag. So let's start off by saying that while you don't need the software to control your RGB, which is what most people would use it for, because this keyboard has the feature of custom trigger actuation, you do need the software to control that feature. Now, the software itself is simple, and that's both a good and a bad thing. It's simple enough to change most of the basic settings like RGB and macros, but when it comes to the trigger settings, I feel like there isn't much for the average user to understand in order to change or customize the trigger presses. Alright guys, so here we are in the keyboard software by Red Dragon, and like I kind of showed earlier, you do have your different settings for your custom trigger settings, senior keys, light settings, performance, macros, etc. But obviously I want to focus here on the trigger setting function. So one of the things that's very confusing, at least in my opinion, when I first started, was how to enable the quick trigger. So I guess by default, it's set to 2. So it can go all the way from 0.01 or 0.1 all the way down to 4 millimeters. And that basically means that if you press the key and it hits, let's say at 2, which is halfway down, that means it will actually go ahead and register the key press. Or you can do it all the way down, which means you have to flatten out the entire key for it to register, or you can just do a very light tap and it would actually register, right? That seems simple enough. what it doesn't tell you is how to actually enable it, right? Because I could just leave it here and I would hit apply, but then it says select one key first, which basically means you can either do it by one, or you can highlight everything and then you can hit apply, and that basically means all of the keys will register if you press it halfway down. Or you could do the same thing, highlight everything and leave it at 0.01, which means every single key will now register if you just do a very light tap. Now, as you can see here, you have a quick trigger, which says you can customize and adjust your trigger stroke and reset, and journey of pressing and releasing. And this is where things get a little bit confusing. If I'm understanding this correctly, and comment below if I am getting this right or wrong, because this is my interpretation of it, is that you can set the press trigger, let's say at 2, and then if you want to release it so it can reset it at 1. Now, if I'm understanding this correctly, what this basically means is that if I press it down halfway, it'll register it. Now, if I let it go, and I'm sorry, I almost choked on my saliva here. If I let it go at 1 millimeter, that means it'll reset. So that means I don't have to let go of the key entirely to go ahead and reset the pressing of the key. So I press it down at 2, and then I release it at 1, and then I can go ahead and press it again down at 2 if I want to. And again, I have to highlight everything and apply it. I feel like this is the part that got a little bit confusing, and it did take me a few tries to kind of understand what this meant. But once you kind of get the knowledge and get the flow going, then you kind of get to play around and see what works for you, what you feel comfortable doing. But I do feel like Red Dragon could have made this a little bit more easier with a little bit more wording to kind of make the users understand this a little bit faster. I did it with trial and error. I didn't even reach out to Red Dragon for this. I kind of wanted to just do this in the sights of an average consumer, and it did took, you know, it took a couple hours, maybe I would say, maybe a little bit less than that, but I finally got the hang of it. But I feel like it can frustrate a lot of people, especially less avid users of keyboards, to kind of understand how this setting works. So I kind of wanted to show you guys exactly how it looks like within the setting here. But how does a keyboard actually feel in real use? Once you get past the software and learn how to actually tune your presses, it's definitely a fun time. Just as an example, check out Valorant here. If I have the actuation point at 2 millimeters, this is how I move if I quickly press A and D. If I set the actuation point to 0.1 millimeters, this is how fast I can move. It makes a huge difference. I probably wouldn't leave it at 0.1 millimeters because it's too sensitive, but clearly you can see how quickly your movements and reactions can be. Picking the right point might take some time, but once you have it down, it's a game changer. For gaming, it's fun. It's like a new skill has been unlocked that you want to perfect. Now for the price. This keyboard comes at $60 MSRP on Red Dragon's website. While I think it's an okay price, it can reward you or it can be a waste of money. Let me explain. If you want to try a magnetic keyboard, this is one of the lowest price magnetic switch keyboards out there right now. So if you are curious, you can try this out and not break the bank. If you already know what you want in your magnetic switches, then there are other options out there that offer different keyboard sizes, materials, and better pre-built switches. If you don't care for magnetic switches, then you can stay away and just get the regular K617 Fizz if you care for this form factor, because it is much cheaper, and outside of the magnetic switches, it is the exact same styled keyboard. So you might as well go for something that's a little bit cheaper and not care for the magnetic switches. I believe that the K617 Fizz magnetic keyboard is a great entry for Red Dragon and the budget keyboard space. It offers a great feature that works well in use, and while the software isn't the best in my opinion, it definitely gets the job done. If you guys want to check this keyboard out for yourselves, I will have it in the link below with my coupon code to save you all a few bucks. Now, I definitely want to thank Red Dragon for sending this keyboard out to me to check out. And if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit like, and also do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.